Okay, and today on Dusting Off Warlord, Saga of the Storm, I am joined by Woodrow Hood of Kingswood Games. Woodrow, thank you again very much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Zach. Yeah, I'm excited, and it was really nice. You said no camera. I didn't have to, I freshened up a little bit, maybe rearrange some things in the office, and you're like, no, you don't need video, and I was like,
Oh yeah,
yes.
no, I left the gym. I think I got home from the gym like I don't know, maybe half an hour ago. I am in no condition to appear on camera. Not that I am usually anyway, but
I didn't go to the gym. I did just come back from the John, so it's kind of similar.
you know what? There's trials and struggles in both of those sometimes. So
That's right. This is
it is what it
sometimes
is.
some grunting and heavy lifting, right?
Yeah. Okay, so I have said multiple times on my show again. It's not that I don't take Warlord seriously. It's that I don't really take Warlord seriously. Like I love the hell out of it. It's one of my favorite games. But I am definitely one of those casual people who, the stuff I like is probably not good, and I'm fine with that. so,
Warlord's a good game then for that. I think, right?
yeah,
It's uniquely good. I think it's well suited for people that just want to sit down and have a good time.
Yeah, and we briefly touched on this before we started recording. A lot of the game is really personal for me as far as because my playgroup's tiny, and so half of why we're there is not even just to play Warlord. It's like, one of my close friends, I see him once every 6 months, and we're gonna sit around. We're gonna put our Warlords on the table. We're gonna roll some dice, and we're gonna talk about what's going on in addition to the game. So, when I watched I was talking to one of my friends who doesn't do any gaming stuff, and she was asking me about what my content I do compared to other people's content, and I'm like, I mostly just analyze from a very, very casual perspective, and some of the streamers. I try to catch Vac streams because his games are usually pretty interesting, but
He's so good.
yeah, it's and some of the stuff he's come up with, I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna say I would have never thought of some of these things. Like the he was playing oh shoot Burlane the Stout, and he was stealthing gargoyles in, and then using those gargoyles to he would play like Black Moss on them, and he could use Burlane to ready it and do some auto winning. I'm like, yeah, probably never would have thought of that. I thought Burlane sucked, and that's about my level of ability right there. So I don't know how much you play, and what scene is your jam?
Yeah. So first, I mean, the first thing you said it was that you get together with your friends. I've been for years now saying that, and this is a different game, obviously Magic the Gathering, but I've been saying that Commander, the format that's sort of taken off with Magic, I've been calling it Bridge for Millennials for a while now, which
Bridge for
boomers and
that is a very good title for that. Wow. Okay.
the point isn't to play with dragons and whatnot and knights and magic. I mean that's an aspect, but what you were getting at was the real heart of why we get together with people to play games, and a lot of it's a social interaction. It's
Yeah.
a way
Exactly.
for us to be doing something, be busy. Movies and film aren't a great way to do that because you have to kind of sit there and be quiet. But like when you're sitting at a table, everybody sort of gets the microphone for a second when it's their turn and
Yeah.
their game action, and then when there's downtime, people can chat, and it's really a great tabletop games are a great conducive way to socialize that our generation has really just grabbed onto, and
Yeah.
it's
I
cool to
think
be a part of that.
I think as far as the you said as a millennial bridge, yeah, a lot of these games, I think, oh, again, kind of maybe how do I phrase what I'm saying? Back when I was playing this game, back when AG was printing this game, not that it was a happier time, but it was a much simpler time. Like I didn't have to worry about paying rent. I didn't like all these things that I care about now. Like I don't worry about that when I was playing this,
Hmm.
and so it's kind of going back to even some classic matchups that we had playing as kids. We had to kind of live some of that again, sitting around the table like
Sure.
that. I was actually playing Commander before it was called Commander. When I picked it up, it was still called EDH.
Right.
And
Sure.
one of the things that okay, and again, I'm not trying to badmouth anybody here, but one of the things that kind of killed that game for me was I loved sitting down with three or four friends. We have our whatever general we want to play or commander, whatever you want to call it, and the games were usually wacky. There was I mean, we didn't have what I would consider good decks, and then at some point the power creep happened, where somebody, and I've been this player for different games, but not for this, where somebody is like, they'll go read what people are doing to win this, and then it turns into that thing where if you want there to be, at least for us, if you don't try to rise to the level this player is at, he is literally going to win every game.
It
Because
becomes an arms race.
yes, and so it turned into almost, and some of the people that I gamed with, both my just acquaintances and friends, some of them are really into that, and that's fine. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that, but it really turned me off where I'm like, I just want to play, oh shoot, who was I playing? I think I was playing Ural the Miststalker, I think is what his name was. He was this just guy who could get really, you throw enchantments on him, he's really beefy, and he never hit the table because all of a sudden people were showing up with 56 counter spells in their deck, and I'm like, yeah, you guys have fun with that. I'm gonna go sit in the corner over here, and yeah.
That's tough. That happens. That happens in casual play groups. One player, it's like they unlock their mind, or they decide that I want to play a different way, and yeah, sometimes you just have to have a conversation about what your expectations are, and oh, please don't play that deck or these types of cards.
Yeah.
And I think that can even be for like typically one-on-one games, like even Warlord. You could say, I can remember that, even when I was young, saying that I don't want to play against your King Zod deck, and nobody, by the way, nobody does
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we want to play like 3 games or 4 games this hour, and not half of a game where we have to just pick up our cards and go home because nobody finished.
Yeah, no,
So,
I had a we the really the I think the deciding moment that happened with basically one of my closest friends. He's like a brother to me, but we were having a game where he was playing I guess a fairly classical Nemesis. How many times can I recycle the Death Fog? And I was playing Kami Fate Seeker as an Uber, and I'm one of those people. I know that I suck at this game. I thought Fate Seeker did the Uber thing better than Zod did, but I liked Logan's Ring. I liked being able to do all the feats twice. But we hit a game state, and it took us probably 10 or 15 minutes to realize this. But the state of the game was such that we figured my AC was so high, and he didn't really have any. I don't think he had anything that was forcing me to make skill checks, and I don't think it really would have mattered if he had. But he needed to roll like a string of 20s to even come close to being able to kill me, and I have to roll a string of ones on my medicine checks to get rid of the wounds as he's putting them on me. And we did the math, and we were like, the odds of him ever actually killing me are so low, and it's gonna take us like several hours to go through all this. And like, do we really want to do that? Do we really want to sit here and just see if the dice are coming up 20s and ones? And that was kind of the tipping point for us, where we really sat back and said, maybe we should kind of put a little bit more thought into this. Like, do you really want to have to watch me, Death Fog into, oh, what was he bringing back? I can't remember what he was bringing back. But like, do you really want to watch me just cycle the stuff over and over and over again? And I said, no, not really. Do you really want, my Fate Seeker at like AC 35? Do you really want to just have to keep trying to roll 20s? And he said, no, not really. And so that was kind of where we just decided, let's put some caps on stuff. And then that really got us talking to other things we didn't want to see. And
yeah,
so,
at that point you were playing a legacy game, right? Like a Pandemic Legacy type thing, where you have to just leave your board state out, call it for the night. We'll see you next week.
oh
Let's
my
come
gosh.
back.
Yeah.
Let's come
Yeah,
back.
well,
It's-
especially again because we weren't playing terribly often, because
right.
and so it's like, is that really how we want to spend this time? And it turned into no, and so that was really when we decided. I mean, him and I don't think either of us really like look up what other people are playing, because we don't really care. But it really turned into, you really don't need to get your armor class above maybe 23, 24. After that, it's about fine. And do you really need, all these different ways to recycle the severed flesh? No, just keep it down to this, and it's worked out really well for us. The games have been much more enjoyable. They've been much quicker, and yeah.
It's fun when everything is casual, and the enjoyment is there, and it happens organically, and you're not even aware of the fact that you can access negative player experiences. But once you start getting into those weeds where you're having those and saying like, this isn't a fun experience anymore, then you have to go back and have those conversations about, well, what are we trying to get out of this experience? And
Yeah.
obviously, like, designers can do a lot to try and keep a game proactive and whatnot, but ultimately, if you're going to try and actually serve every archetype that people like to play, they're going to be control cards and Uber cards and these things that take longer to assemble a win condition. And yeah, that's rough. But there was a lot of that in early Warlord. I mean, ultimately, these people who are making the game were incredible and brilliant, but also, they didn't, because it was their first time doing this specific thing. They kind of had, it took time for them to figure out how their game worked. And so there would be these times where sometimes the best thing for you to do was something really, really slow. And people, went to that.
Yeah, I think there's also, I'm gonna try not to repeat myself too much from other videos I've done, but I think there's also, um, I don't begrudge people that are again, like, we'll use the online circuits for a good example. Like, I don't begrudge any of those people playing the best options they have. Like, that's, if they're there to play for prizes, they're there to play for standing and status. That's, you do you. And I think one of the things that's really easy for us is, because again, my playgroup's small, and I'm really selective about, even letting new people into it, just because it's got a nice flow right now. But we don't have to worry. Like, if I tell one of the other people, I'm like, I really don't want to see this anymore. Like, this is, they're not going to be like, well, I want to keep, like, they understand. They're all there to have a good time. And so, same thing with me. If someone says, Zach, do you really need to bring that? And I'm like, no, I don't. So I'll just stop doing it, because yeah. Now, just real quick, you touched on a little bit. And I don't know how much territory you can or want to go into for this, but you mentioned Zod, and I haven't looked at too much of the stuff from the new set, because a friend of mine who does he does videos for kind of like games like Warlord that are not necessarily mainstream games. Um, and him and I think we're gonna try to do a collab for that. But I did see, I want to say it's called Encumbered, I believe, is the name of the trait that it's if you have, I think, two or three items on you, you become encumbered. I don't know if
Yeah,
that's accurate.
yeah,
So
yeah.
is that kind of a again, I'm trying to think of how to word what I'm saying here. Do you think, though, that those decks like Zod, like the Uber decks that just throw all these bonuses that effectively never go away unless you get rid of the item, do you think those are in, like, problematic to the game, or are you guys concerned about those? And again, I don't. If you don't want to answer this, that's fine.
No, you're fine. You can ask me literally anything. I'm an open book, but I think so basically what we there was discussions really early on. I'm talking 2.5 years ago plus about how the play pattern of put a lot of items on one character is can be rough, and there are ways that you can design around it to make it not so slow. But ultimately, kind of no matter what you do, a deck that's looking to have 6 or 8 items on one character, it's going to take them 3 or 4 turns to do that. And if by the end of those 3 or 4 turns they can't almost instantly win, then yeah, that's sort of a bad play pattern, we would say, because you're just stuck there for so long. Obviously, you can design cards with a lot of payoff for having so many items, and we do plan to, whenever we're doing, like, trying to support a more slow strategy, we want players to be able to turn the corner and start stepping on necks and actually, proceed to a victory once they've assembled all those things. But at the same time, we wanted to just sort of feel the freedom as a designer to make compelling, interesting, strong items, but have some organic, not so much as a silver bullet answers that it just exists. And so one of the ways that we came up with to do that, and it was actually wasn't Josh, myself, or anyone that's currently on the team, but it was actually Vladimir from AEG, who we were just talking, we were DMing each other one night, or maybe on a call, and he threw out a million things, a million ideas, but one of the ideas was encumbered, and it was like you wouldn't do anything with it, but other cards would refer to it, and it would just be a game state, like state based
Yeah.
property that a card has that you can hang, you can just reference it otherwise, and you don't actually have to do anything. But a card might be a Brine Fiend, +0 attack, 8 AC, 2 hit points, but has +5 attack against encumbered characters. And if you just kind of organically sprinkle that throughout your sets, then you don't have to print as many, really really narrow item hosing cards, and you can just kind of organically have those things out there. You can still print item destruction and whatnot, but you don't have to worry as much about not printing. But then now you're free to print really cool items and really compelling items, to where if somebody has 3 or 4 of them on, they're a problem. And if somebody has an issue with that, they can just sprinkle in some encumbered cards that reference encumbered, and then maybe a couple silver bullets as well.
Yeah,
But
no, I one of the reasons I that sounds like a excellent way to tackle tackle that the kind of build issue. One of the things that I just like, just from what you're telling me, is um, it feels like a lot of the item removal cards that currently exist tend to not do anything but remove items. And so if they're not playing, outside, I want to say maybe something like Crush, which has some kind of smaller effect, but things like what is it? Steady Hands, Nimble Fingers,
Hmm.
Clearing the Mark, all those. If there's no target for it, and you don't have a way to toss them or whatever to get some kind of other effect, they kind of just sit there. And so,
Yeah.
one of the problems that we were having with specifically some of the build decks is, um, if you don't bring those answers, there's not really much of a game a lot of the time. But if you bring those answers and they're just sitting in your hand, it's just like, why am I even playing these? And so I that sounds like a good approach that you guys have. I like the sound of that.
Yeah, there has to be some, yeah, some there's a lot of opportunity cost, and some of that should be there, but typically I would say kind of the plan right now moving forward is to not have any sort of side deck or sideboard. Currently, that's still the plan for Warlord. We don't plan on doing any type of sideboard. Effectually, you could change out your starting army to be better or worse, and we'll probably put some utility effects and some, negative effects on maybe some second level characters, first level characters, so that you can swap them out against certain decks. But right now, as it stands, we're not planning on doing a side deck, and part of the way those sort of silver bullet cards work is that if you don't have a side deck or somewhere external to your main deck to store them, if you put them into your main deck, again, like you said, you just have dead cards, and maybe you draw an extra card of something you don't want to see duplicates, and you draw this silver bullet that's totally doesn't do anything in this matchup, and now you're just really sad, and you kind of have a non-game.
Yeah.
And so you only have so many flex slots to put those silver bullets in, but more typically, what we'll be doing moving forward is some sort of modal cards, modal effects. So there was a card famously, people use it and love it, called Final Blessing, which is when somebody goes to do something in their graveyard, they go to reach to their graveyard to get a card, you can cancel that action, which is extremely narrow. Very good against necromancers and some type of reanimation strategy, but otherwise doesn't do anything. So there's also an additional effect on there: react after your character suffers a wound, give
Yeah, I
them
get the
plus
plus
one
one
hit
hit
point
point.
this
Yeah.
turn. And now you have this card with a really it's really sort of like two halves of a card. Neither effect is really worth a card. You wouldn't play it if it was just the plus one hit point. You wouldn't play it if it was just the cancel a graveyard interaction. But if you have both of them on something, and one of them is very, you'll always be able to do something with it, most
Yeah.
typically.
No, Final Blessing makes its way into quite a few of my cleric decks.
Yeah, and we think that since we don't have a side deck, we think that more typically it's good to do the sort of modal cards that have some type of you know, evergreen application with, then they have the more specific thing on the other end. And we'll still occasionally do some silver bullets, but those will be very narrow and very punishing for whatever you're, trying to tackle.
Yeah.
Those would be stuff like Hand of Cunning, where it's just like discard all the you've got to be level 6, but you just discard all the items. Stuff like that we'll still do those things, just much less often. More often, you'll see those modal cards where it has some kind of use case, like you're talking about Crush or Final Blessing.
If memory serves, we did see quite a few of those. I think the term used was modal cards. We saw plenty of those in fourth edition, didn't we? I have very hazy memories of fourth edition, but I do remember there were quite a few actions that were very similar to Final Blessing, where they had two effects, and they weren't especially amazing effects, but between the both ways to use that card, it was certainly better to risk putting that in with some of the more corner case scenarios where I want to see some of those cards triggered than playing something like, again, just like a Nimble Fingers, where it's like, if they don't have any items or any items worth getting rid of, this is just sitting there.
Sure. Yeah, fourth edition I think had some really good design philosophies that they've followed. You can really see certain things show up there where prominently where they weren't before. I think the items were really well done in fourth edition. They were powerful and compelling, and the items in fourth edition I love. And the modal actions, like you're talking about, I also really like. You can either use this as an order or use it as a spend order, or you can discard a card as in addition to its effect to get this additional effect. And there was a lot of that on their cards, and I think
Yeah.
players loved it. I remember personally loving it, and everyone around me really enjoyed it as well. And there were also effects like Bellicose, move forward, but sometimes you don't need that. You just want attack. So it also had that stapled on there. But we think specifically when you're dealing with some type of niche countermeasure card that you kind of want to have access to, but it's not going to, a third of the decks you see, you're not going to be able to use that aspect of it at all. We believe in, more typically stapling another, half a card onto it
Yeah.
so that you can at least do something.
Interesting.
Players like to play the cards in their hands. It's surprising, but they enjoy it.
I know, right? Well,
Shocker.
I'm sorry.
I said shocker.
Oh yeah. I guess potentially moving on from discussing the upcoming stuff and your guys' plans for that. You personally, I can't remember if I asked you this or not. Would you categorize yourself as more of a casual player or as more of a competitive player, somewhere in the middle?
I'm somebody who has lived on a character arc. So initially, I was very casual minded about games in general, and think my first foray into synergies and just kind of like the third eye opening was from Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 edition. There was what we called the Gleemax boards, or the 339 boards from Wizards of the Coast, and there was a character optimization like sub forum, and we would go on there and we would come up with things like what's the spot check for your character to actually spot the sun, and we would like calculate all these things.
Oh, I
we
remember stuff like that. I remember someone was asking like, what's the DC to swim up a waterfall or something stupid like that.
yeah. So we would calculate that stuff, and I was a part of those conversations. But also, we would make these
Nice.
characters that had all of these repeated effects to where their saving throws are plus 100 or whatever, and come up with these builds, and then some of them would be themed, and some of them would just be this is overpowered. Or chicken infested. You would find corner case feats from like a magazine, like chicken infested. You can, as a free action, produce a chicken, and then well, now you're turning these chickens into bombs, and that kind of got me started maybe on the path to just noticing synergies and wanting to build things, and then that melded with that combined with my casual side. So in Warlord, toward the beginning, I started wanting to just do, just find these weird little interactions and combine these cards on the board. And at some point, I think 2013, I moved to Chicago and had zero friends. I just moved into a situation where I had nobody. And I had heard about Magic the Gathering, never played it, but I knew, the most important thing, and John Zinser from AEG says this a lot, the most important thing for any gamer, tabletop gamer especially, is that they need a friend. Like, more than anything, it doesn't matter what the genre of game is or whatever else, the basic need of a gamer is to have at least one friend to play it with. I had zero, so I was like, I know Magic is popular, I know I'll find warm bodies if I go and seek this out. So I started playing Magic at a local shop, and the shop was fairly competitive. There was Pastime Games was up there as well, which is a huge Magic store, and they run a lot of events. And like fast forward a year later, I was traveling to 2,000 person events, and it completely rewired my brain and the way I saw games. So I had both the casual, and then more recently, I guess not recently, but then sort of in the middle of my arc, I guess I had the competitive, and then now on this other side, I treat it. I almost don't. I don't want to say I don't have fun when I'm playing games, but like my brain is looking at everything from a different perspective. I'm thinking about the experience that I'm having, the experience people around me are having. I'm thinking about the design. I'm thinking about the mechanics representing flavor of games. And I don't know, I view games it's a completely different experience for me now, including card games.
Huh.
So competitive, casual, and I don't know. I don't want to say ascended. That sounds like I've done something good. It's more like I'm broken now.
Looking down on us unwashed masses playing.
No, I think I see the code. Like I'm always looking at the code, so I can't
Okay.
just look and say that's a beautiful whatever tree. I'm seeing zeros and ones, I guess.
Okay. I see. Interesting.
Yeah, but sometimes to my detriment. I'm not able to turn that off very well. So
Yeah. I think I kind of understand to some extent what you're saying. Again, I don't do Warlord. Most of the games I play, there's only been a couple in my life that I've ever really tried to put any kind of time, energy, or effort into getting good at. And none of them have been card games. There's been one tabletop game, one video game, and outside of that, it's pretty much just it's how I unwind. So
Sure.
yeah, not really interested in one of the my friends from high school. They were really big on playing Overwatch for on the PlayStation 4. They were really trying to rank
Okay.
up, and I used to play with them, and then I kept noticing we're losing because of me, because I'm terrible at this game, and but they kept inviting me, and I was just like, guys, like I understand objectively speaking, I am holding you guys back, and they were great about it. They were like, no, keep playing with us, and I'm like, guys, you guys are going down in ranking because I don't know what the hell I'm doing, and I have no desire to put in the grind to get to where you guys are, so yeah, kind of just had to eventually find reasons to appear offline so that yeah, so they don't got to worry about me dragging them down. But so do you have any specific warlord decks that you're particularly fond of, or specific warlords, or I don't know, archetypes, themes, anything like that?
Yeah, and I think I've shared this before elsewhere, but I started off with Sketh Hellbringer. Was my first warlord. Was handed him by my local group, and it was basically nobody's playing this. Here, you can have it, and eventually kept adding cards to it. Got it to a 100 card deck, which is
Nice.
about what everybody was playing was 100 cards. But I was the first person in my play group to realize that if you play more copies of an individual card and less cards total, you will see the cards that you want more frequently, and then yeah, it's a nice thing. So I was the first one to discover that. So I went down to like 60 cards, or like very few cards. I think I went down to maybe 65 or 60 cards, and I had a bunch of 3 copies of stuff, and they were running a lot of ones and twos and 100 cards, and all of a sudden my deck started doing the same thing every game, or at least something similar to what it did the game before, and I started to win,
I know what
and
you're
then
talking about from Magic, not from Warlord, but when I started playing Warlord,
sure,
I think I was 15 or 16, but I started Magic at like 11 or 12, and I know
yeah,
exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, your deck is rubber banded together, it's huge, and it is absolutely terrible. And
yeah,
man, those are some magical days, no pun intended, but
yeah,
those were days of glory.
Ziploc bag, but it and no sleeves.
No
It
sleeves, yeah.
But then eventually everybody caught on, and we all started building our decks that way, and that was a so like you're talking about. I mean, this happens where the dynamic changes and everybody decides, no, we don't go that direction, stay here with us, or everybody says, oh yeah, we should all try this. And so that in that case it was the latter, where it's like, yeah, let's all pare our decks down and play the cards that we like in them. And so it was interesting. But Sketh Hellbringer was my first love, and then that was in all of Saga, and I would take him to Gen Con and Origins. I was a really young kid, didn't really have a lot of friends there, know a lot of people from the community. I had my one friend that I would go with to these things, and we would play. And I would start 2 Madocs or Madoc, 1 Urg in the middle,
Yes.
and then 2 Mangonels, and I would typically first action Mangonel, second action Mangonel, swing with my Urg and Madocs, and sometimes just from being a little kid and having the little kid luck, you would just get there against like one of the powerful decks at the time, like Sorsha or Belial or King Zod even. I think Lund. I think Lund, Sorsha, Belial were kind of the strong ones at the time. But
I
yeah, I would
remember
just beat
Belial
those
doing some
decks.
awful, awful things back in in pre-campaign.
Belial was pretty good.
Yeah.
Teoth was really good with the order Fireball.
Order Fireball, yes.
that was pretty that was pretty good. And starting 3 Grucks, of course, because why wouldn't you?
Yes.
So there was it was an interesting meta, but sometimes like I liked playing out in the wild. I liked the ability to just sometimes roll dice, and that was something that was fun. I was maybe 15, and it felt good to be a 30-year-old that kind of had a serious look on their face.
Yeah.
So just
I don't
because
know
you
what
rolled
that's like,
you rolled well.
but yeah, I'm sure it's amazing.
just, just because you rolled well. So I enjoyed that experience. And then Warlord did the reset. All those cards are gone. Now we're doing campaign edition.
Yeah.
And then I picked up Adi Akar, and I just stuck with him. I didn't have nearly as much success with Adi, but I enjoyed him, and I really enjoyed using Thatch, the second level character, with Pike, the weapon, and so Pike gives
Swinging into
you
rank
character the
2,
ability.
yeah.
Yeah, spend order, go into rank 2, and so what you could do is you could put it on a thatch at the end of turn and move him forward, and then on the next turn you could win initiative, and then you could spend order with your thatch, roll with power attack +10, and then hit a second rank warlord for 3 wounds.
Oof, yeah.
Because they haven't played a card yet, so their hand is full, or your hand's full, however it checks. But then you're doing 3 wounds, and I was, killing people that way, and
Yeah,
I
not a
thought
lot
that was fun.
survives that, yeah.
Yeah, no, it was interesting, and there were a lot of second rank warlords. I think there were Desecruz and just different, a lot of 3 hit point second rank warlords. So it was fun to kill people that way.
I remember
Um,
playing because I couldn't afford because I was a broke kid. I couldn't afford hammer tosses
oh, me too.
in pre-campaign, and so my Uriel he was stuck with the pike.
Okay, sure. Poor guy, he got -1 AC, but I guess he went to an even numbered AC then, which is good for planar. Well, no, at the time it wasn't planar. That's right.
He
He was
was I think he
ethereal, right?
was I can't remember if he was
He was
astral or
ethereal.
ethereal. I think maybe he was
Maybe Astral.
ethereal. I don't
I don't
know.
know. Yeah,
He
it's
still
also
dies of the
muddled.
freaking chain lightning. I remember having to play freaking
He does.
what was
Yeah,
the tree End Father and sacrifice to
yeah.
try to keep that guy alive. Like the levels of desperation. Uh,
2 hit points aren't a lot to work with from the front.
yeah.
But yeah, so then it was Audiokar, and then after that was Epic Edition, and I actually, for whatever reason, I stuck with Audiokar. I don't know what made me do that. And then fourth edition was Gesame Steel Shard was
Yes.
my go-to, and then in the new upcoming edition, I would think I'm probably going to be enjoying Lord Barrow because I enjoy, he has the thing where you can do a level 1 or 2 spell again, and then every time you cast a spell, you do like an Eldritch Blast, right? You do like a +0, and it's just full casino mode. You go magic missiles, and then maybe ready with Nihil, and then magic missiles again, and each time you're getting an extra shot, and it's just fun to roll so many dice. Even if even if I miss or lose, I got to roll probably way more dice than the other
Oh
person,
yeah,
and that
magic
was fun.
missile's a blast spell. Just throwing all the dice out there for that. Yeah, I actually in the matter
Yeah,
of confessions, I actually don't know who you're talking about because the only warlords I've seen have been the ones that were spoiled on the Kickstarter page, and then
yeah.
oh, what was the other one?
Lord
That dwarf who's the fighter cleric dwarf, and I don't really remember what any of them do because I haven't really been looking at too much of the new stuff. But I mean,
All good.
I liked
Well,
everything I saw, but
okay, so you're okay. You're okay knowing there's no
yeah.
like spoiler alert. So Lord Barrow is he's a warlock, and he's a level 5 wizard, and he is sort of like if in D&D terms he would be like Pact of the Tome, and so he's got Scribe, and he can once on each turn he can cast a level 1 or 2 wizard spell from your discard pile, and you have to banish it once
Okay,
you're
and
done.
what faction is he?
He's elf,
He's an elf.
and he
Okay.
also he also has react. After you cast a spell, he performs a +0 range strike. So every spell you cast, if you jump forward, +0 range strike. If you blast, +0 range strike. If you magic missile, +0 range strike. He tacks it on the end to every spell. So it's a pot shot. It's just a little +0. But the fact that he can
Yeah,
play a level one,
all those
one or
plus zeros. That's
two,
gonna add up though over time.
you're gonna hit one. You're gonna hit like 1 or 2 of them eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just a good time because you're rolling a lot of dice, and the fact that he can play a spell from the discard pile is fun to me.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah, he's exciting. I think some of the warlords. I think probably some of the most proud cards that we'll have from the new set will be some of the warlords. We I think did a nice job of sort of creating a strategy in a can on the warlords, and then for some factions and some warlords specifically, we created sort of almost like a deck or an experience in a can based on the starting army plus the warlord, how they all sort of interact together.
Okay.
And
Huh.
we felt like that's an important design space because you never know what cards you'll get in hand, but you do know, one thing is always sure you have your starting army and
Yeah,
your
as your
warlord
starting
in play.
formation,
So
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, so if you can create sort of like synergies and give people, their dopamine up front, that can be a good thing, we think.
Yeah, I think actually one of the things just for Warlord as a whole that I like is, I mean, I was a big L5R player for a while. I did again. I started with Magic and I played that for a good chunk of time, but just the starting formation, just that knowing that you get to start with that has been some of the Magic games that I've played, the traumatic ones where no lands in your hand, you can't do anything, and you mulligan down to 6, and you still have no lands in your hand. And it's like I've got 26 land in this 60 card deck, and I haven't seen a thing. And then it's just like you just get up, and you just throw your deck across the room and just leave. Not having to really
Mana
deal
Screw
with
and Mana Flood.
yeah,
Yeah.
not having to deal with that in Warlord is one of the things I think that I really like that aspect about it. I mean, I've had the L5R games where yeah, no holdings. It's like don't even there's no game. It's just like just get up and leave because you just lost. So not having to deal with that kind of resource or that kind of problem is something that low key I'm very very happy with that Warlord plays like that.
Yeah, Warlord has its it has its, mumps and bumps. But the lack of a, energy based or resource system. I know it has, technically it has a threshold based resource system, but it's the way it's made. A lot of times, if you have the card, you just play the card, and it's very freeing from once you, especially if you have played those other games, a lot like the Magics and all the, loose plagiarizations of Magic that have come out. Or deviations or variations, however you want to say it.
Yeah.
But if you're used to doing that, and then you sit down and play Warlord, it's like people's eyes light up. We've done so many demos at this point, but it never gets old watching somebody just say, "Wow, I can just play anything in my hand."
Yes.
And it causes analysis paralysis for new players at first because they're like, "I have 5 cards I can play. I have 5 characters in play starting off that can all each do a thing. Which of these 10, or more different things should I do first? Like, in what order should I do them?"
Yeah.
But once they get the hang of it, they love it. They're like, "Wow, I can just do it. If I have the bomb, I can just play the bomb."
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I think yeah, the fact that you don't have to worry about again drawing resources, I think, is a very strong point of Warlord. Real quick, and again, I don't know if you'll have an answer for this. You mentioned Grucht earlier, and that jogged something in my brain that I kind of wanted to ask somebody about. So the fourth edition Grucht and the original Grucht are very, very different cards. So original Gruchts, they all stack together. The new one, it's a bigger bonus, but it only applies to one of them. And I don't think it works on spells either. And we saw plenty of MRPs like that in 4th edition. We saw like a Nandale come back who had an extra strike, but his ability didn't work on Warlords anymore. We saw Durga come back and got freaking nerfed. Now, okay, so I'm gonna try not to lose my temper here. I hate shit like that. Okay, so if you bring something back and you bring it back like Githsem or Logan, who are functionally speaking, they're strict upgrades. There's nothing worse about them. They simply got better. Like, I'm one of those people where I was sticking with older cards for the most part because I didn't really play in tournaments that often, and so I didn't really follow what was current. And the idea that my Durgas now suck because someone wanted to bring them back, my Gedneries freaking suck now. And then this would have just been me just being angry to be angry. But then we saw the Retyrus, I think is what his name is. The Karakachuk reprint that's not Karakachuk, and you can play both of them. Now, are you guys gonna again? Are you guys gonna do that in the upcoming re-release of the game? Are we gonna see more older cards getting nerfed for the sake of bringing them back, or is that just something I don't have to worry about? I don't know if what I just said makes sense because I'm acting emotionally right now.
Well, I'm right there with you. I think I've become sort of numb over the years to what happened. It was sometimes we have to step back and think like this was Warlord was early 2000s, and even though some of these things I think could have been obvious even at the time, the leadership at AEG and the people making decisions were using best guesses and looking around for best practices from other publishers and stuff, I think. But ultimately we can look at it with some historical context, and we can say it is objectively bad to change the words on a card to where when you sit down and play with a copy of that card, it doesn't do what it says. Digital card games, I think, can get away with it. Obviously, stuff like Hearthstone, they can just errata everybody's cards and then refund them whatever type of resource was spent to to acquire it, and that's kind of okay. Um, Even that to me is a little bit much, but uh, the way that AEG went around eroding cards, we talked about Fireball, and then we were like, okay, it's a spin order now. And now fourth edition even did a new version of Fireball.
Yeah,
But
the save DC is not even the same. Yeah.
yeah, yes, yeah, you have receipts. You have all the receipts. And then so AEG did it, and then fourth edition did it a lot because they were trying to create this like curated sort of starter deck feel, where everything is sort of balanced around the power level of that format and what they want it to be. But they want to reprint cards, but they don't want them to do what they do. The thing to me that was really egregious, I guess, about the fourth edition implementation, and I'm friends with Anna, and at least acquaintances with some of the other guys that did fourth edition, but so I'm not talking badly about them, but I just, the thing that was tough for me was that there were events where the participation prize, but like the prize for winning was you get to bring back a card or bring back a character into this new edition. And so some of those cards you're referencing, like I think maybe Corian Drac, I'm not sure. I think maybe Durga, I'm not sure. They were, so it's like, cool, you get to bring this character back. By the way, we're going to most recent printing backwards compatible errata this card in every format and nerf it in the current format. So you basically, congratulations, Rip Bozo, you killed your favorite character.
What is that? What does that mean? Congratulations, you played yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, oh, and it instead of a prize, it became like a nightmare scenario where I just killed my favorite character.
What have I done?
Yeah, what have I done? Exactly. And that was just really bizarre decision making. I guarantee you, at the time, the people making the decisions thought it was a good idea and had some type of reason for it. But obviously, looking back, we can say that it was terrible.
Yeah.
Why would you ever do it? Our stance is that we have a couple things that are sort of like hard lines for us, and one of them is that we will never functionally mechanically errata a card, and we've already sort of gone back on that ish, but it more had to do with like the overarching rules of the game. And even so, one of the things that we're doing / have done is Dragon Lords will no longer have the Overlord trait, even the old ones, because the way it worked in the beginning was, the idea was, oh, you shouldn't have a Dragon Lord and Overlord in your deck, and then AEG started just doing Dragon Lord trait later, and it was kind of like how they quit putting unique on Warlords, and then if they would reprint a unique Warlord, they would just leave unique off. So in that way, we've basically said every Dragon Lord doesn't have the Overlord trait anymore,
Okay.
which is a boon typically for every deck and deck builders and stuff, because now you can run Overlords and Dragon Lords in your deck. But other than something like that, that's like we need to change the comprehensive rules, and that might affect something. We are not going through and running a slider tool over any cards. And if something gets reprinted, it will be directly reprinted. And we might iterate on something like Rotarius / Krachiguk, that type of thing. Maybe we make a card that is in that design space, but we would never reuse art ever for alter art and then reuse it, which was what happened with those cards. So
Yeah.
It's not like we would use some of that design space plus take the image. In fact, we'll never reuse images like that ever. But it was so basically, I think the short way to say it is no. We'll never do the things that you're
Short
talking
answer,
about.
no.
Yeah, the short answer is no, and we feel you. We experience it too. It is frustrating to sit down and play with cards that don't do what they say they do. Almost impossible, and it just creates a bunch of headache and confusion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sorry, you on.
Well, and for us, and it's heavy-handed, but for us, we can ban cards. Look, we're okay. We messed up. We can ban this card, or this card doesn't function on its face because of the rules, because we did it the wrong way, and that's okay too. We just accept our mistakes and move on, and we're okay with that. We don't need to go through and use a slider tool after the fact to get cards where we want them.
Okay, I see. Yeah, no, our solution was literally just, if we don't, since again there's so few of us in my little play group, and because again we're not, it's just us. We just, if we don't like the MRP, we don't even use it. So we're just
Yeah,
like, we're not
yeah,
doing that. But the
yeah.
the dev player who's like, so my Gedneri doesn't work anymore. I'm like, no, it does. Like, just forget that MRP. We're not going to use that. Keep playing the way you've been playing them because it's fine. And the inverse of that is also true though. Like I think I floated the idea because my favorite warlord in the game is Sir Robert the Vigilant, and
Hmm.
I floated the idea of like, hey guys, as long as we're using original printings, and they're like, no, and I'm like, yeah, that's probably fair. So yeah, so we kind of just ad hoc in, and again, I understand you guys can't do that because you guys are looking at a much broader picture than me because again I'm just some nobody out here in California with a tiny play group of people who just yeah, and we do what we want to
Well,
do. So
and we would say the same thing. You know, John Zinzer and Arna are not under your kitchen table watching you play. It's okay. Play the way you want. It's totally fine. It's just in a sanctioned event or an official event or at stores. We would encourage judges to
yeah, absolutely.
enforce the rules and make sure everybody's playing by the rules. That way, when people sit down at a table, everybody has the same understanding. Because when you're dealing with public, you don't get to have those conversations like you're having with your friends about like, hey, Gedneri's in, Robert's out, right?
Yeah,
Or hey, we're not doing this, or we don't play these types of cards, or here's
yeah.
what our philosophy is on this.
Everything we
So
do
we have
is completely subjective. So yeah, the idea that
yeah,
yeah, what
which is fun.
yeah,
And it would be nice to be able to do it in public. It's just you never know who you run into, so you have
yeah.
to create a standard as a company.
Well, that is. I'm not gonna lie. I'm very relieved that the short answer was no.
The short answer is no. We've talked about it at length elsewhere as well, and it's just something that really. I mean, going into it, it was exciting to get the license, and there were obviously things that we wanted to do, but there are also things that we really wanted to not do, and that was one of them. And another
Nice.
one was like mechanically unique promos we're not into.
What do you, if you don't mind me asking, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so I mean, back in the day, I don't think Magic did it much, but AEG loved to do it, where they would make these promotional cards that were mechanically unique. So these are an effect that you can't get out of a booster pack or somewhere else, and you would show up to your local game store. Somebody had just been to a convention or somewhere, and they have a copy of this card. And you go, "What's that?" And they go, "Well, you
Oh,
had to
okay.
be
I
at
I know. I get
you,
what you're saying. Yeah.
you should have been in Reno, Nevada last weekend to
Yeah,
to get some of
we
these."
saw a lot of that in L5R.
In L5R as well, I'm
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, and that was an AEG classic, and it was really exciting and really fun for the people who were there. They loved it, and it was really bad for. So it was high highs and low lows with that type of
Yeah.
promotional strategy, and the only thing that we will do is the Medusa Lords. So that level of that tier of the Challenge Lord system. Of course, those will be mechanically exclusive. However, those won't be legal basically anywhere. I mean, the Alliance format and nothing else. So that's fine. If you own the copy of the Medusan Lord, you can play it in the casual multiplayer format, but it's not going in anything else.
Yeah.
And then for Dragon and then like for Dragon Lords, the way it's going to work is they'll release for challenge and Overlords as well. They'll release for challenge, and there'll be a special challenge version that you get that has the thing that lets you redeem it for a challenge, and it's a special printing of it. But then later on, those cards will be in packs. They just won't be the special version,
Oh, okay. Interesting.
and it's not legal for play until it releases in booster packs because that's when other people actually have access to it.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Huh.
So you have a really cool, beautiful, potentially foil, full art. It's got all the markings for redeeming it for challenges, and it's this exciting, exclusive version. And so you're happy to have it. It's still a prize. It still reminds you of the thing you did, but you have, you can still go and get a copy out of a booster pack some months down the line, and so
Yeah.
can everyone else. And that way they can actually play with the card, but they just won't have the special, cool version.
Yeah. I can't even remember the last challenge I did. I think it was Wyvern. It was so long ago. Very long time, huh? So that is cool that the challenges like that are gonna end up coming back because I think even though I didn't really play in them, I would watch them sometimes, and it was a uh, very iconic aspect to Warlord. This idea of kind of going on a journey, hopefully that starts off, at your local store and ends up with you, taking down a Medusan Lord. I loved it. I didn't really participate, but I loved watching it. I loved reading about it.
Flying out to California to potentially challenge a one of one card that you've been really excited about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really unique thing, and I loved it then. I think it'll work now as well. I think the idea of boss fights is just so iconic, and you look at games like Elden Ring, the last couple of years, just super popular. You look at Dungeons and Dragons, climaxing year after year, and the idea of boss battles and monster hunting and whatnot is just it's perfect. It worked then. I think it's going to work now in terms of getting people excited. And,
Yeah, I was gonna say the just the hype that those games had. I'm gonna think the last one that I saw that was kind of drawing a, if you want to call it a crowd of people who didn't play Wood, it was one of the, I think, Iron Hall challenges, and there were people who didn't even play it who were just watching, because it's like everybody was stopping to gather around all the players who the tournament's over, and
yeah,
so the guy who got first is like, he gets the first one who gets to challenge the Overlord, and so
yeah.
everyone saw,
Why
hey, why are all these people around this table? And it yeah, for not having
why
a
are
very
there,
big game store, it drew quite a nice sized crowd.
yeah, why are there 30 people crowded around that table? Is Mr. Beast over there? And then you have to go look, and then you say, well, Mr. Beast isn't here, but what is going on? Those two cards look way different. That one looks really, really powerful. And then, you ask somebody, what's going on? And then they whisper back, oh, this is a super serious thing. And
Yeah, and then
yeah,
the Overlord wins game one and goes next, and the next person steps up, and it's like, oh,
yeah,
oh man,
you
those are
just
such
you,
good times.
yeah, yeah. No, it's really fun. It's really exciting. I think it's really cool. And I'm surprised. I guess maybe information doesn't circulate super well. And every publisher has their own ideas, but I'm surprised that it wasn't implemented or iterated on by other companies very much.
I want to say it was because there was a brief period of time where I was working down at the local game store. I want to say the World of Warcraft card game, I think, had something
Yeah,
similar.
they did raids and dungeons,
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
which we're going to, and then at conventions they would actually have at least at one Gen Con I remember they had a cosplayer, I forget her name, but she dressed up like Alex Straza, and she ran some kind of dungeon for people, and if you beat her you got something special. I don't remember what it was, if it was a spectral tiger or what it was, but yeah, they did that was kind of doing that. We're actually going to go and the other direction and almost sort of copy, not copy, but borrow inspiration from WoW TCG and do Overlords and Dragon Lords and Challenge Lords at home that are like, you buy this kit, and on one side the cards are pure pure PVE in terms of like the deck pilots itself, so it just like flips over cards and executes whatever those cards are,
Okay.
and you fight against it with like three people. Or you can flip them over on the other side, and then one person's sort of like the game master, dungeon master, and they run the Overlord challenge against the other three people,
Oh, okay. I think I've
and that'll be
seen. I think
like
I've
a
seen
standalone
something.
product.
Okay, I think I've seen something similar in some X-Men game or some Marvel game that one of my friends was playing. I
Well,
like
that's
that.
literally that's what the WoW TCG did.
Okay.
Was that's what their raids and dungeon decks were. Is you would buy it, and it was just a totally separate product, and it was almost sort of like a board game, and it was something where you could just take multiple people and fight against it. So your group of three four players would, friends, when they didn't want to do multiplayer, would, let's go run against this boss fight, and or run this dungeon. We have new decks, and then it's fun because you're like deck building as a group. You're like, okay, I'll try and keep us alive. Okay, I'll try and focus on killing them. Okay, I'll try and take care of their items,
Yeah.
and you go in with a strategy and see if it works out.
Nice. Yeah, make it a team effort like that. I think the closest
Yeah,
that we've gotten to that is we were doing this really stupid, and I'm sure this is not difficult for people who know what they're doing, but we basically just built all of the Overlord decks, the Challenge Lord decks, and we had a, I don't even remember what we called it, but we just had this kind of a game day where we would see, can we take one deck and take on every single one of these, and how far can we go? We didn't get very far. We got creamed a whole bunch of times, but those decks
I'm
also,
just a gauntlet.
I'm sorry.
Just a gauntlet. You just run a
Yeah, it was
gauntlet.
just
Would you
start.
would you keep the same board state, or would you start over?
No, you would start over, but you would start with
Yeah.
Quartet, and then you would go from Quartet to oh shoot, was it Siegemaster who was second one, and then Titan, whatever
I
the
think.
order was. And
Hmm.
yeah, we did not get very far in that. And I'm sure it's probably really easy for the people who again who are much better at this game than we are. But that too was something where the Overlord decks, you someone played them, but they really did their thing, and there really wasn't a whole lot of thought involved in it. So having something that's a bit more involved in that sounds like that'd be right up our alley.
Yeah, it's fun. I think it serves casual players, but I think even competitive players can enjoy it. It's something that from every bit of market research that we've done, especially just sort of like talking to people, they are saying that they think PvE is a huge deal, and if your game mechanically can support it, which I think Warlord is uniquely positioned to do that, right? Like it's essentially Dungeons and Dragons combat, the game.
Yeah,
It's so intuitive to sit down and roll dice against a big bad. And the nice thing about it too is that you can't have the same exact experience twice because you've got like three decks against this one deck. You're all rolling dice. Sometimes you hit, sometimes you miss, even if
yeah,
you're taking the same game actions. And there's so much replayability and excitement and fun, and also you can get those moments where like two people have died or passed on, and so this last person is there, kind of like the 100 men versus one gorilla. The last person's there, and they need to hit, and they roll a 20 or whatever, and suddenly their friends are
yeah,
like lifting them up and cheering, and they're like, "Let's order another pizza," and you know what I mean. Like it's,
yeah.
I think it'll go over well.
Yeah. No, I can't wait for all that stuff to come out and take a look at that. Because yeah, I like things like PV because I hate other people, and so yeah, it's one of the reasons our play
Hmm.
group is so small. And so, um, I think you are right. I'm seeing I want to say more and more stuff like that where it's I want to say they're called like robots. The deck is like a
Hmm.
robot where it's like it all you have to do is like you said is just flip the top card and it tells you what it does. And
Yeah.
so you can have a group of
Co-op.
people. And I'm really big on cooperative gaming like that. Like I don't know
Yeah.
why. Just a lot of times I don't know. A lot of times it just feels good to win as a team like that. So
You're not alone at all. People love it. The genre is has grown a ton. There's some games where that's all it is. I think Arkham is like that. Arkham LCG, I think is pure co-op, right? But there's just a ton of games, and a lot of publishers have dabbled with it. I think I didn't follow it closely, but I think Lorcana did. Ursula was kind of like that, where it was like you fight against Ursula. Maybe it was one on one, but
oh yeah, I haven't touched that game at all. I hear good things about it. Just yeah, haven't delved into it in any way, shape, or form.
I haven't deep dived it either. But it's but I know that and other publishers are kind of hearing that feedback that people really like co-op, and is there anything you can do? I'm not sure. I think maybe Star Wars Unlimited is going to start dabbling in that. Flesh and Blood, I believe, has started dabbling in that. And so it's something that publishers are realizing they want to be able to do, but sometimes there's a limitation on the chassis of the game and your ability to uh, you know curate that experience. Basically, you have limitations.
Yeah,
You have strengths and weaknesses with the clay you're working with. But for Warlord, it's like, man, this is prime clay. This is the perfect, this is a perfect shell to have this kind of experience in. So,
yeah,
and for Dungeons and Dragons players, it's so intuitive. It's like, oh, I sit down with these cards that essentially function like Dungeons and Dragons combat, and I'm fighting against a boss. This is like Dungeons and Dragons, except for I don't have to, there's no role play involved, type thing. It's much faster pace. I'm rolling dice constantly instead of once every 15 or 20 minutes. So
yeah. Yeah, no. As far as the whole D&D thing, yeah, the first deck I got, it was at I want to say it was like some Orcon or some convention. It was just in a bag of swag, and it was okay. So this is what happened, and this happened. So my first deck was Slayer the Unkind, and it had a couple treasures in it. It had like I think Rod of Striking. It had a whole bunch of crappy stuff. Two rares. I'm not even kidding you. Two rares for the first pack I ever got was a Mass Blessing and a Torn Yasar. Okay, now little kid Zach was looking at this and said, I can't even cast Mass Blessing because Slayer's a wizard and Torn can't cast Mass Blessing because she's only level 3. I went onto the Temple of Lore, right? And I posted back when Cliff Jam was still running the trade group.
hmm
And I had looked briefly through some spoilers, and I said, I'm looking for a couple of these cards because I want to try a new deck. So I traded that first edition Tauren and Mass Blessing for one Ysar the Elder, one bear form, one wolf form, and one rock form. I didn't even get the elephant form out of it.
Oh no.
I was completely happy with that too. I was like,
Oh,
yes.
that's rough. I think a lot
No,
of
it was
people
good.
our
It was
age,
good. I had a good time with that.
a lot of people our age have those stories from Pokemon TCG, right? You're trading your foil Blastoise for an Oddish or something because you don't know what's happening, and an older person is manipulating you somehow.
Oh no no no!
Uh,
But see, I don't think anyone. I don't think anyone. I do not feel taken
but you
advantage of.
you
Okay.
yeah, you sought out to do this for sure.
I didn't know what those
For
were
sure.
worth. I didn't know how good they were. I didn't care. I was just like I like the idea of this lycanthrope guy and turning into a wolf and stuff like that. So I was totally happy with that. So I had no problem, no flack on whoever that was that I traded that to. It was a good time.
I'm projecting my own experiences. I think a good friend of mine is essentially my best friend at the time. He traded his father's alpha and beta magic cards that his
Oh
father had
no.
gotten in college. Yeah, so Power Nine and Dual Lands and everything. He traded all of those to. I actually remember the Temple of Lore username, but he traded them to somebody for like some Valadans and that kind of thing. And so that
Oh
was
no.
rough because that especially nowadays that's six figures potentially worth of
Yeah, that's your
worth of
retirement right there.
6 figures worth of cardboard for 3 figures,
Yeah.
if that. So that was kind of rough. But I do remember in the trading halls a lot as a kid. I would have a Jackals. I would start off the convention having Jackals of Morn, having Torrents, and having Mass Blessings, and then by the end of the weekend those were all gone, and somehow I had like Axe of Trigoth because I would just trade with people who were like, oh yeah, what about this? As a little kid, so I was like, yeah, I guess, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, those are some good memories. Maybe not on your end, but I have never forgotten that trade. And again,
No, you're
I don't look bad on it or anything like that. I was just like, that is a thing that happened. And
yeah, yeah, yeah. That is funny. It's interesting that they didn't think to say something, but you got what you wanted
I
for
did.
sure,
And like I said,
and so did we.
I don't begrudge them. Again, I don't think anybody. Yeah, I don't think there was any deception, and it's all fine. Um, but yeah, I guess because we're coming up close on the hour mark here. One thing I did want
Sure.
to kind of maybe end off with you is speaking of alliances. What is your alliances pairing? If you had to sit down right now and throw down which two
Yeah,
warlords are you pairing up?
oh, I'm taking 2 warlords. The most typical thing I do is I think some players would describe almost as a little boring, but I really like Adarmi, and I really like Tavis Jape. And it is so sort of boring, but basically what I do is I put a bunch of rogue items and fighter items on Adarmi, who isn't either of those classes, but she can, wear the
Yeah.
stuff. And then Tavis is just making everything better. And I start Alfred in
Yes.
between. I start Alfred in between Glenn the Blaze and Archer Tower, and then my front row is like Brother Domini, Spencer, and I forget what the others are. But
Oh, that's
basic, and I
right.
don't.
Because Archer Tower is not reserved in. Ooh, okay.
Yeah,
Ooh.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So basically, my starting army is a ton of strikes, just a metric ton of strikes at extreme bonuses.
Yeah.
Can't miss territory. And I sit there and nobody wants to mess with me because if somebody even throws out a pot shot, they're afraid that I'll be like, okay, well, my action, I'm going to kill 2 of your characters. So
Yeah.
so I kind of get left alone, and I'm holding all the cards. Like I have the guns, and of course other people could be playing combos or who knows what. But in terms of fair warlord, I've got the guns, and then at the same time I'm building up my army, and I'm supporting my army with Tavis a bit, and then I get my army up and start attacking with her, readying her with Tavis and supporting her, and that's the deck that I enjoy. It's very basic. It's not that cool, but it's just a deck that I enjoy playing.
No,
So
I
I
think my
play it.
buddy Clint, I think that's one of the ones that he does too. Now his thing also, and he pointed this out, and I think I think Tavis in particular is kind of interesting in Alliance if you make him evil, and I don't really see evil Tavis too often. But if there's three
I
other
think
players,
everybody hates you.
the troll factor is yeah.
Ev- Everybody hates you. But yeah, as soon as you go evil on Tavis, everybody just looks across the table and says, I'm gonna slap you, not physically, but with I'm gonna beat you down now. All
No,
three
no, no,
armies.
no. They're
Get
gonna beat me down
that out of
at
here. Yeah.
-3.
Well, it's going to take you longer because you're all at -3. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think turning Tavis evil is just you become a lightning rod.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me. I haven't heard of a lot of people playing Alliance yet, so it's interesting to me to hear that you've actually tried it. You're like
No,
one of the
this
one
was
of the rare
this
few.
was just theory. And I did
Okay, just talking.
yeah,
Sure.
I did a video, and I had my buddy Clint, I had Rich was on, and then I had Chris Vack
Hmm.
on, and they were talking about their pairings, and that was I think that was one of Clint's pairings that he was really interested in trying. We haven't really been
Sure.
able to get more than two people together for a while, and so we kind of felt like why even play when it's just the two of us? 'Cause it's not really going to be the genuine experience. But
Yeah. No, four people feels good.
yeah, no. Vac was doing. He was also starting Alfred with. I believe his was Alfred. Because his was straight freaks. It was Alfred, Glenn the Blaze, and Scarlet, and he was doing. Oh shoot! I don't want to mess this up. Keziah Firehair and Ducat, and so his opening range strikes were again very much. As long as I'm not rolling ones, these are probably hitting something. So that's interesting that you guys are both
Sure.
doing something similar.
We have a lot in common, Chris and I. Say.
Huh.
No,
Well,
I'm joking. I don't know about that. I just want to throw it out there.
no, no, no.
Chris would be
I
like,
wasn't
what?
saying.
Where's he going with that? We're both bald.
Okay, well, see, you know what? It's the small things that that can bring people together and all that. Do you anything else? You
Right.
have the floor. Anything you want to talk about before we conclude everything?
I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of I have a lot of things going on right now in personal life. So there's something called Brood 14. Do you know about Brood 14?
Not the right kind of Asian for that.
So it's cicadas. There are these 14-year dormant cicadas, and basically there's like 12 different broods of cicadas. And Brood 14 is I am in ground zero for Brood 14. So I am being like there's just swarms of cicadas. They're just now starting to emerge, and it is insane. It is like an anime. Just constantly there's just constant cicadas everywhere right now where I live in Kentucky.
So you're basically being swarmed over by insects. I don't know. I don't know if you're familiar with the SCP Foundation at all. I don't know if you know what
Yeah,
that is.
yeah.
Do you remember that one where the insects take over the world? It's like these
I
insects
know,
that
but
just
I feel like you're too. No offense. I feel like you're too, and I feel like I'm too old to know that. That's interesting. Isn't SCP like a little bit of a younger thing, or no?
I don't know because again I hate other humans and so I don't really talk about my interests with too many of them. It might be. I'm
I,
honestly I'm not sure. I just
I learned about. I worked with kids for a while. I worked with like teenagers for a while and younger kids, and they would tell me about SCPs and stuff, and they would talk about which SCP was like what or whatever. You never want to run into this SCP
yeah.
in the dark at night in an alley or whatever.
I can't even remember
So
how I found it. It was just randomly. I think someone was doing like some kind of reading on YouTube, and I don't even remember which one it was, but I was because I love that kind of. I was fascinated. I'm like, wow, and so that led down the rabbit hole. And I don't really follow it too much anymore because it seems like it's quite a bit different than it was 6, 7, 8 years ago or whenever I stumbled onto it. But interesting. Yep, cicadas taking over the world. Yeah, yeah. Good luck with that.
they've been they've been underground for I think 17 years. They've been underground, nibbling on tree roots, waiting, and now they have unleashed, and they are absolutely everywhere. And it's just starting. It's like the emergence, but there's so many. It's insane. Like you go outside, and you just have them on you.
Yeah. That does
It's
not
interesting.
sound pleasant.
Yeah, I don't know. You said anything on your mind? That's what's been on my mind lately. I'm like, there's so many, and I hope they don't eat our garden.
I do not know how to respond to that. I wish you the best with it, though. Well,
Thanks.
Woodrow,
Yeah,
it was great having you on. Thank you so much for joining me.
thank you. Yeah, and wish me luck against this Baskerville swarm.
I'm gonna send you some cans of Raid, and it'll be fine. Nothing
There
to
you
worry
go.
about.
There you go.
And that is going to do it there. So, big shout out again. Thank you so much to Woodrow Hood for joining me. And hope you guys found this entertaining, informative. I hope you had fun. I had fun recording it. So, thanks for checking this out. God bless all of you, and I'll catch you in the next video.